Thank you, Kirsty, for being part of this process. As you know, we are videoing this to use in the training. So, thank you for bringing yourself and your work as a coach. Tell me what your question is for the supervision thinking.
Okay, so I have a client that's recently started with me, and she went through quite a few traumatic events when she was younger, for which she's never been through a therapeutic process. She seems to be coping just fine. She seems to be well adjusted. She's a very reflective person. What I'm worried about is that am I doing more counseling or am I doing more coaching? What's it inviting in me?
So I'm hearing you wanting to really check on good ethical practice in what you're doing. Is it coaching? Is it counseling? And the other piece was about you.
Yes.
Like what's
what's
it about you?
when I'm sitting with her, I can hear your voice in my head saying know when to refer someone.
Yes.
But at the same time, I feel like actually I'm quite well equipped to deal with this particular person. And so is it my ego telling me that, or is it my experience telling me that? And how do I know the difference?
So ego, I can do this, or experience and I've actually got evidence and experience of what's that boundary between change that can happen in coaching or counseling.
Yeah.
So by the end of our 20 minutes or so together, what would be a good outcome for you?
I think it would be good to feel comfortable with the process that I'm going through with her, or to have decided that actually it is my ego speaking and maybe it is best to have a conversation with her around what that means.
So continue, or know that maybe it's your ego and you're being heroic here, and have that conversation. Yeah. So what tells you, I'm getting a sense you're drawn to think that she's quite well adjusted and you can do coaching work. What are the signs that tell you that this is still good coaching?
She's quite... Our first session was pretty much just her telling me her story. It didn't feel much like coaching. It was more like a very long chemistry session. And that was fine. And she got emotional when she told me certain things, but it was the way she worded them that was so... It was like she was looking at it from above. She wasn't in the emotion.
Okay.
She wasn't in the trauma. She was out of it and just looking back and reflecting on it. And our coaching sessions since then, I've had a similar feeling.
Right. But yet there's something that you're still wondering about, otherwise you wouldn't have brought this question. So what's that piece? What's the niggle in you?
I think it's that voice that's going off in my head. And maybe it's... it's back to that question. Is the voice going off because I should be listening to it, or is the voice going off because it's an insecurity and actually I'm fine, I can do this. I can handle this.
And if we stay for a moment looking at what would be the signs that would tell you, actually, I'm crossing a boundary here, what would tell you that?
I suppose the direction of the conversation that we go in. I'm thinking now of our last session, and it wasn't actually about the traumatic situation. It was what negative experiences or habits she's taken from that and how it's affecting her life now, which is quite a forward-looking way to talk about something quite intense. So I suppose the direction of the conversation is an indicator.
Sure.
Yeah.
And I'm curious about the contract you have with her. How would you consider that within the ambit of coaching versus counselling?
I'm thinking maybe I missed out a step of contracting there when she was telling me that story in the first session. It could have been a good time for me to say to her, you know, we're dealing with some heavy stuff here, and I'm aware that you haven't been through a therapeutic process. If at any point I'm feeling like this is a little bit not what I do, and maybe there's somebody else who could serve you in a different way, you know, can I say that to you? So I didn't say that, so I'm thinking maybe I could have. Or maybe I still could. Yeah.
Indeed. And when you're doing that, what is it about? What do you believe about you as coach, her as client, when you have that level of conversation?
I think it shows respect. Respect for myself, of not putting myself in a situation that I'm not equipped to deal with. Respect for her in almost not trying to pull the wool over her eyes. You know, I can deal with this, and then suddenly she's in a state and I don't know what to do. So it gives her an opportunity to decide if she's happy to continue.
Sure.
Yeah.
So I'm hearing you talking about an explicit conversation, and that there's some structure and safety for you and her about when it's going to continue as coaching and when potentially it might require something different. So what's happening in you now as you've named what you could still do with this client?
I'm thinking it would be useful at the beginning of our next session to bring this up. I don't want to come across as if I feel like I'm out of my depth, because honestly I don't. But just to mention to her that we are dealing with, well, as I said before, we're dealing with some very intense issues, you know, and I'm not a psychologist, I'm a coach, and there is a difference. So as long as we're discussing the, you know, the present day and how she's changing things now and the looking forward, then that's okay. But if she feels the need to start unpacking, then this is perhaps not the best place to do that. If I said it like that. I think that would be fine.
And in your work with clients, how do you usually approach this boundary between coaching and counselling?
I feel like it hasn't come up much. I feel like I feel like most of the clients that seem to come my way have already done quite a bit of therapeutic work. So they're quite self-aware already and ready to take it to that next place. So this is the first time I've really been faced with someone who hasn't done that.
So your sense of her is it around she's not as self-aware as others?
Well, that's the thing. She is quite self-aware. She hasn't gone through a formal process, but she does a lot of self-reflection, and she reads a lot of books, and she writes in a diary, and she is quite self-aware. And certainly through the coaching we've already done, she really... I mean, she said to me at the end of our last session, I said, "How are you feeling?" It was quite an emotional one. And she said, "I feel enlightened." And I thought, well, that's a positive thing. So
I'm curious about your thinking about doing it right or not. And because she hasn't been through a process of therapy, potentially, it's not right. What's your thinking about doing it right?
Maybe it's my own personal beliefs that when one goes through something traumatic, one needs to open it up. I think my concern is that her situation involves a lot of grief, and through my experience with grief, it's something that needs to go through a process. Yeah. So I'm worried that she hasn't gone through that process, and is it going to just come out?
So I'm hearing your frame of reference around working with grief is that there is a process and she hasn't done that.
Yeah. So maybe I'm being a bit limited in my
Mm.
my way of looking at it.
What's your fantasy about it coming out, this grief?
I suppose it's on one hand the worst case scenario and on one hand the best case scenario. The worst case scenario would be that she just taps into that part inside of her that hasn't perhaps dealt with the grief, and then she just falls to pieces.
Mm.
But that also is quite a wonderful thing, because then it gives her a place to move on from. But I suppose my hesitation is, should she be doing that with me?
And I'm hearing an assumption there that if that were to happen, she is with you and would continue with you. What else might happen if that did come to that point?
I suppose that could be the point where I refer her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you take a step backwards and think about the dynamic between you and her, your concern about, is this good ethical work, is it coaching, what piece of thinking or theory could you use to think a bit deeper about this?
The only word I have going through my mind at the moment is contracting. Just contracting. You know, I checked in with her at the end of the session, you know, to make sure she wasn't falling to pieces, and she wasn't. So I think the contracting at the beginning of the session needs to be stronger. And also I then need to trust what she says to me. Yeah. And not put my own ideas onto it. You know, if she says she's coping and she's fine, then I need to believe that she's coping and she's fine.
So that seems an interesting piece, that you're not quite believing that she can do this.
I suppose I'm doing a bit of rescuing, potentially. Well, I'm not doing it, but I'm being very strongly invited into that. Yeah. Which is so funny, because that's exactly what her last coaching session was all about, her rescuing.
Okay, so you feel the urge potentially to be rescuing.
Yeah, if she says she's fine and she can cope with it and she wants to go forward, I need to respect that and say, okay. Just because she hasn't gone through the process that I think she should go through doesn't mean that she needs to.
How interesting.
Or that my idea is correct. Yeah, it's that word respect is coming up in my head.
Okay. Say more about that?
Respecting someone's right to walk their own path.
Right.
And to do things their way. And to know how they feel, and to trust them when they say that that's how they feel.
And when you do sometimes fall into a psychological game, where would you next go when you shift? What's your other position when you shift from rescuer?
I think I tend to stay there, to be honest. I tend to stay there. That's my strongest. Yeah.
And what's the gift in that position that you can use to enhance your work as a coach?
Well, it's to hear the vulnerability that she's expressing, and rather than to swoop in and take it from her, take it on for her, it would be to empathize and to reflect back and just to listen. Just to listen. I mean, I'm thinking of our first session where I pretty much just listened for a whole hour while she talked, and she found great value in that. Even if I didn't feel like I was actively coaching. You know, so yeah, it's something about listening to somebody's vulnerability.
Without needing to rush in and make it better.
Oh, well, she's obviously grieving, so I'm going to, you know.
Yeah.
Well, is she okay? Yes,
so
she is. Fine. Yeah.
Trusting her to know her process and live it, and respecting her.
Especially because I am of the belief that she is quite a reflective person.
Yeah.
She really is.
Isn't that interesting? Because on the one hand, you've said that a few times, and yet there's that piece of you that is sometimes being pulled to rescue and
It's almost a disbelief. It's a disbelief of, but how can you be okay?
despite all
Despite
what you've been
everything,
through.
how can you be okay? Yeah.
So what's the new belief that's starting to form in you as her coach?
That whether she is really okay or not, whatever she says she is how it is. Does that make sense? So it's a bit more respectful. It's if she says she's okay, then she's okay. And if the next minute she's not, then the next minute she's not. And if the next 10 years she is, then the next 10 years she is. And that's how it is.
And I'm curious about the responsibility for her being okay. Where is that going? And
well, it's with her.
yeah.
I mean, I'm there to empower her to make the changes she wants to make. So, to make the changes that she wants to make. Yeah. So I have to go where she wants to go.
So to move forward with this client, when you feel that temptation to rescue, what's going to be your plan B?
I think I'm going to check in with her at that point and maybe do a bit of contracting. Just check in and say how, I can see we're getting into quite intense waters here, deep waters. How are you? And then believe her when she answers.
Yeah. And I'm hearing your perception of intense and deep waters is your perception, and
that's true. Yeah.
You're inviting her to make sense
Yeah.
of it as well. And how is she?
That's true, because she does a lot of crying, but just because somebody's crying doesn't mean that she's falling apart.
Indeed.
It just might be the way she releases, when she talks about it. So.
And it sounds like you want to check that out and get to know what the tears are meaning.
Yeah.
Because you've got quite a dramatic sense of what it might be.
Yeah, contracting. I think contracting is the key. And then trusting it.
And as we move towards the end of this piece, if you take a step back and look at you as coach with other clients as well, what's the learning that you're going to take out of our conversation?
The learning is that I have to maintain my coaching presence. I have to maintain that respect. Because I think that's at the very essence of what coaching is. It's my favorite catchphrase. You have to allow people the right to walk their own path. And so I just need to do that. Yeah.
So I'm hearing it's about you being within yourself and trusting the process.
Because it's a process I believe in and I know how to do it. So I also need to trust that. Yeah. Yeah.
Is that a good place to wrap it up?
Yeah. Yeah, it is. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Kirsty.